we have an art account that was brought to my attention by one of you guys because you guys felt there was suspicion of AI art being used, and other people in the comments seem to think so as well. So let's kind of dive into this because, in my opinion, this account is a little bit confusing. And again, disclaimer, this is all alleged, this is all my opinion, and don't send hate to the artist involved, okay? At the end of the day, they're gonna keep doing their thing. So this is the account in question. It goes by the handle of Sulfur Sofo, and they have some artwork they've posted, but it's not very many. This account has seemed to been around for only 6 months actually, so starting from June 3rd. And their very first post says support small artists, and then it goes into showing their artwork. So here we have kind of like a painterly piece made by them. It looks like a large figure, maybe like a statue, and some people kind of witnessing it. And then their next post has a side-by-side of old art versus new art. Here's an old art piece they made, and obviously this does not look AI at all. And then they have their new art, and honestly to me the new art does not look AI either. This to me looks like something that somebody legitimately drew. And then here they have a post. It's in Spanish, so unfortunately I do not understand. This person is trilingual, but they're kind of giving you a tutorial on how to render. And this is the piece that actually kind of broke everything apart, that made people think that they were using AI. It's titled Glow Up Sketch versus Final. So they showcase the sketch and then they slowly kind of erase away the sketch to reveal the art piece below, and they call that their final art piece. And then here they do another swipe to see the final, and as you swipe you can see the piece in kind of more of its rendered state. And then we get a couple close-up shots. And then this is the speed paint, and all the comments are actually turned off of the speed paint, but they're showing their process of how they draw. So they first have a very base sketch, and then they go in with a much more detailed version of the sketch, and this sketch will end up being the line art as well. And they continue going through the process. Now, to be honest, the speed paint to me is a bit suspicious because, okay, for a couple of reasons, right? Mainly because most artists, even the most experienced, the most well-seasoned veteran artist that has been working in industry for like decades, they don't get things perfect on the first go. Like they're gonna have to undo, they're gonna have to like redo the sketch a little bit. And this is not something that we see really with this artist, like especially with the sketch itself, right? The sketch kind of seems like it is perfect from the get-go. So I'm not talking about the very, very basic kind of like blocking the head, the body in like this, right? But if you kind of look at it, they seem to know exactly where every brushstroke should go, which can indicate, right? Can, because this is alleged, this is my theory, it could indicate tracing, right? Like the brushstrokes seem like they were made by a human. Like, okay, because AI can fake speed paints as well. I don't think this is a case where AI is faking the speed paint. I think this is somebody legitimately applying brushstrokes on a canvas. It could be a scenario where there is an AI generated image beneath it, and then because they paint over the AI generated image, or like they draw over it, they're just tracing over the AI generated image. And if you guys don't know, if you guys use Procreate, you can actually insert hidden images in Procreate and trace over it, and it will not show in your speed paint. They say that they draw in Clip Studio Paint, so it could be a Clip Studio Paint and it could be not Procreate. Maybe I could be completely wrong, right? To be honest, the thing is, you can't tell whether it's drawn in Clip Studio Paint or not because it's cropped in, so we can't tell. Basically, the point that I'm trying to make is the only way we know what program they're using is what they have told us, because there is no extra circumstance or environmental information to provide to us to indicate, hey, this is Procreate, or hey, this is Clip Studio Paint. But like the point that I'm kind of trying to make is that they seem to know where every brushstroke should go. And of course, there's like a little doodle in the chest too, right? And I feel like this has been something that some artists have been doing recently. You know, when they're doing the speed paint, they'll like do some funny little drawing and then erase it and move on with the piece so that they can prove to you, hey, this is a human done speed paint. And yes, like this would indicate this speed paint is done by human hands. It still doesn't mean that necessarily tracing couldn't have been involved in the process. The big thing is the hands, okay? Because it's the character's left hand that's throwing me off a little bit, because they just drew a blob, right? They drew a blob and another blob for where the thumb should go. And that's totally fine. That's how people block out hands, right? I block them out in like rectangles, but everyone has their own way. But then they know immediately how each finger should go. Like typically you're gonna have to like rework it a little bit. I could be wrong. Maybe this person is an absolute genius of an artist that born with immense natural talent and they immediately know where every brushstroke should go. 99.999% of artists, including seasoned artists, don't really function this way. There's going to be some sort of correction that's going to have to happen. And another thing too is, again, the eyes. Like, right, let me just point out, it was like out the gate they knew where the eyes should go. The eyes were not incorrect whatsoever. Maybe I'm the problem, but when I do a side profile, the eyes will be a little crooked. Like I'm constantly readjusting the shape of the eyes to make sure they match match up properly, because otherwise like one eye is going to end up bigger than the other, but they just immediately know. But yeah, so let's look at this hand here. Like the way the hand was drawn was perfect. Like the first go, the first pass through was already perfect. And again, maybe they're an absolute unit of an artist and beats me, right? Or there could be tracing involved, because how would you know exactly on the first go? And so here we arrive at the sketch, and then they kind of start rendering off of this. I think I'm nitpicking a little bit, but I'm gonna defend myself and say that I think nitpicking in some of these scenarios is in a way kind of reasonable, because if there is an accusation of potential AI usage, right, I want to prove that it's false. So therefore I want to look for reasons as to why it could be false. So I'm going to kind of like look in there, or vice versa. If I look and find things that would lead me to think that it could be AI, then I'm going to point those out as well. Some aspects of the sketch is a little bit odd to me. And again, everybody has their own art process, so everybody is going to draw differently. But it's just that like there are things that are sketched out that I feel like a lot of people typically wouldn't sketch out. And maybe this is going to be really nitpicky, right? You guys will let me know in the comment section. But there's like some weird like strokes in the hair that's fleshed out, like this kind of curve here, these like little points here, and this like these like little like bumps in the head that kind of look like she has a lumpy head. I feel like typically these aren't going to be things that somebody would sketch out in their art process. Again, I don't really do anime style art, so maybe I'm wrong here. Another thing with this jar, where there's just kind of like a line here. But what exactly is that line indicate? Like maybe it's a crack in the jar. I could be wrong. Also, our pot having like 3 handles, 1, 2, and a third handle down here. Or maybe this is the shine of the pot and I could be wrong there, right? I'm not super sure. We'll see later. But just like some of the lines kind of don't make as much sense to me, but again, and the same thing with like the highlight in the jar being like sketched out, you know, where the shine should go. Like I'm not saying like sketching out the pickles in the jar or whatever, like that makes sense. But some of the other ways the blobs are sketched out just is a bit odd to me. Like these look like lumps, which makes sense. You know, like you would sketch out a bunch of lumps, you'd probably color it in and whatever it is. It can be something magical in the background. Not quite sure what this is supposed to be. There's just not as much clarity with like elements on the background that I feel like most artists, when they draw, they would have some clarity of what would be going there. And then we start the rendering process. And this, I want you to note this out, because this is something that confused me. Again, I could be overthinking things, right? This artist renders chunk by chunk. And I've talked about this in other art pieces as well, like other videos where we've looked at artists that had potentially a suspicious process. Like, whereas there's like 2 types of rendering. Some people render chunk by chunk. So, you know, for instance, like what this artist is doing, they will render like literally brick by brick, and they will finish the rendering of 1 brick before moving on to the next brick. Whereas other artists will go like step by step. So they will put all the flat colors on first, then they will do all of the shading, then they will do all of the highlighting, then they will do all of the fine detailing, and then they will do all of the lighting, like the environmental lighting and stuff like that. So they do like stage by stage. It's not wrong or right, whichever method you prefer. However, this is not a smoking gun, right? But I'm just pointing out that when it comes to showcasing whether somebody has potentially used AI art in the process or not, we take like all of the evidence, quote unquote, together, and then we form a conclusion. And a lot of times when people have traced over artwork, including tracing over AI art, they tend to do like a chunk by chunk rendering. And it's because they kind of don't know why something is done the way it is. So it's easier just to color select, brush it a stroke, color select, paint some more colors in, color select, paint some more colors in. Because if you do render stage by stage, then it would showcase you have some sort of knowledge of what is going on in each stage, if that makes sense. Many legitimate artists render also like chunk by chunk. Just because somebody renders like this does not mean they're using AI, but it is one element that is a little bit suspicious. Another element of this speed paint that is suspicious to me is that the environmental lighting is already drawn in. Again, there are people who can do this. Absolutely talented units of artists, like god artists, can do this. They can already draw with environmental lighting without having to kind of like slowly build it up. And I did it in my previous video, but I'll give you a demo again. I have a new demo, okay? Meet Loverboy, our little teddy bear. And Loverboy is going to be our example today. I'm so sorry, guys. I'm using my mouse right now because I'm too lazy to grab my drawing tablet, because my drawing tablet is an absolute unit. But yeah, so basically in this lore, Loverboy got rejected by the love of his life, so therefore he is going to set the world on fire because he really wants to be with them. So yeah, we got fire in the background. I'm only adding the fire so that we could have some sort of like environmental lighting to then inflict onto Loverboy. All right, it's like hella dark in the background or whatever. Okay, so like I know this looks really jank, but please bear with me. Most artists when they render, right, they would render, you know, the flat colors or something first, right? And then they might want to add some shadows, you know, because Loverboy is kind of backlit. Like maybe Loverboy's gonna be having some like evil existential like thing that he's plotting or something. I don't know, man. I don't know, bro. Loverboy's just mad, okay? And then after that, I feel like most people go in and would add the environmental lighting, you know, like the yellow that would reflect onto them from the fire behind them. Like they would kind of add this in afterwards because you kind of need to like see it in order to block in the environmental lighting, if that makes sense. I hope y'all catch my drift. I don't know if Loverboy was as good of an example. My Bob example in my previous video kind of made more sense because I had Bob underwater. Some artists who are absolute units of an artist, you know, they can, without even very much like background information, they can already know. I'm gonna like color this part in all like yellow because there's gonna be the fire in the background. You know, I'm just gonna do his head like something like this. And then, okay, now we're gonna add Loverboy's colors. And like, because we know there's gonna be a big shadow on Loverboy's head, we're already gonna make it like this dark color, like this like very dark pinkish color, because we know there's gonna be this shadow cast across his face, you know, like stuff like that. Like absolute units of artists can do this. But it is also something that we do see with like people who have traced over artwork, who have allegedly. It's not a smoking gun on its own, it's just it adds to the picture of, this is a little odd. So they kind of like continue to render here, and they're rendering in the jars in the background behind them, already adding like all of the highlights, shadows. I don't think they're gonna go back and like modify it in any way. Like I think it is as it is. Then they start adding in all of the rendering for the clothing, etc. After they finish putting on those colors, they don't need to change anything. As in like they didn't make any other pass-throughs through the artwork. They didn't like go back to the background and add some more lighting or add some more highlights here and more shadows there. They were just done. And again, that on its own does not mean you have potentially used AI art. There are people who can draw like that on first go. It's already good. They don't need to go back to it. Most people, most artists that I have seen will have to go back to the full piece and do some sort of pass through. Like, hey, let's like alter this or alter that, or like, oh, I need to add some more glow here or some more reflections there. So to me, this speed paint in particular is a bit suspicious just because of the things that I've mentioned prior. Again, this is hand painted. Yes, I just think something was traced, allegedly AI art. Some other aspects that I thought was a bit odd is that if we go here, they have this, right, where they showcase swipe to see final, and they show you a sketch that is not from their speed paint. So what I mean by this is, I feel like typically with most artists, when they show you like swipe to see final and they show you a sketch from their art, it is actually a sketch from their art. Like it will show up in the speed paint because it's literally like maybe 1 hour into the art process, they screenshot it and then they, or like whatever, they save it as part of the process. Oh my God, I'm exposing myself, man. But this is like art that I did in 2019. So this was 6 years ago? 6 years ago now, because it's 2025. And it's literally January 1st, 2019. So 6 years ago, so this is some art that I did, okay? Yeah, I feel like typically if you post a screenshot of like, hey, this is like from my art, it is actually from the art, you know, and then we get the finished piece. To give benefit of doubt, maybe they took the sketch and then imported it to a different canvas so it's not in the original speed painting that we saw, and then they color blocked like this, and then they went back to the speed paint and then they painted from that. Some artists do that. They just typically do it in the speed paint itself. Because again, like if we do look at the speed paint here, right? All of this is blocked in and they immediately start coloring. There's no airbrushing to kind of like see the placement. And again, this is something that artists do, you know, they will airbrush in colors. Dude, I'm like fighting with a TikTok swipe. But yeah, this is something that some artists literally do. They take the sketch, they start airbrushing in colors to see how the values would look like, and then they render on top of that. That is literally a legitimate process, but it would show up in the speed paint. But yeah, this speed paint was the one that was actually sent to me that had people be like, hey, I think this looks kind of suspicious. And here they have like another art piece that they've drawn, like drawing random followers. So like maybe I'm just too crazy, bro. Because they have this, right? Swipe, and then we see the full piece. Like maybe they just take the sketch and then drop on the colors to use as just for the TikTok video. Like that could be possible, right? Because again, in the speed paint, like we don't see that. Again, like this is another speed paint where like they know exactly where everything is gonna go. So the sketch doesn't have to be like rearranged or moved in any way. Again, maybe they're an absolute unit of an artist and they literally know exactly where every piece needs to go, so therefore they don't need to change it, right? Like every brushstroke already. It's just odd to me. Then they did like a Madoka Magica fan art, and this one has a lot of people that are kind of confused. This piece specifically. Here's what some commenters had to say. This person writes, after viewing this account for a while, I'm convinced you have genuine skill for traditional art, but digital art is a different story. You don't even show the layers or process, and you have been called out in. They follow up with writing, I saw it, referring to the speed paint. It's very fake looking. Like the way everything is painted instantly and no further rendering is done. Like no actual artist paints like that. And another commenter writes, even if this isn't AI, which I heavily believe it is, why is her hair brown? If it's Madoka, it would be pink, literally the same color as the bow and the hair is supposed to have. And I guess it got cut off. And then this other person says, it's the lighting and coloring, overrated statement, but it actually is. And M says, I understand if it's because of the coloring, but with all the colors around the hair, it gives off the impression it's brown, especially with the pink bow being right next to it. So this is what's being referred to, Madoka from Madoka Magica. And as you can see, this is the reference character. So yeah, we have the reference character and we have the artwork. I'm just putting this side by side to show you because again, if we're trying to like prove or disprove whether there was AI that's used, a big thing that AI tends to do is kind of fuck up the colors of the character. So this can be done by actual artists too, right? Let me just say that actual artists can take their own interpretations of coloring for popular fan characters, right? Like characters in media. But this is something that AI also will tend to do, where AI will mess up the coloring, the outfit, etc. of characters that are in media because it's too complex. Straight up. Like there's a reason why AI, when it comes to making AI Genshin Impact fan art or etc., right? It just fucks up the clothing all the time because it's way too complicated for AI to have good references, quote unquote, of the clothing. So it could be an indication that AI is used, but again, humans can also make the same mistake. So take with that with a grain of salt, right? If it is referring to the hair coloring, I would say the hair coloring is quite off because Madoka's hair is pink and the hair here is brown. And I've never seen Madoka Magica. I've been told it's a great anime. I have not watched it. Well, actually, I saw maybe like 10 minutes of the first episode. But also, is she not supposed to have two pigtails, or did I miss something and at some point it changed? Here she has one. It could be an artist's interpretation again, right? That's why things get really blurry. Madoka's dress is also pink, and in here, it definitely looks very like beigey. Again, it could be artist interpretation, right? But I'm just saying. And then the two inconsistencies, things that were a bit odd that people were pointing out as well, is twofold. One being the other foot is just gone. And then the other being this hand, in that the left hand is actually backwards, which is true. Again, artists have made this error. Hand errors also tend to be a thing that AI does, where AI will mess up hand placement, like straight up. This is a situation where it could be either. But like a lot of the canonic elements of her clothing are there, you know? The little dots at the end of these like kind of like petals of her skirts are there. The shoes are accurate. The gloves are accurate. The puffs on the sleeves are missing the little bit of like other pink that's beneath it. Maybe due to perspective, it's obstructed. The buttons are supposed to be pink, but they're black here. Again, maybe artist choice. I don't know. And here we get some more close-ups. And yeah, this is where we can see you cannot see the left foot. It's just gone. And here's what some commenters are saying, where Apples is writing, okay, if I'm wrong or not, but this gotta be AI. The left hand is wrong, and also the left leg looks like it's blending into the ground. No feet also, and the left leg doesn't have a shadow as the right. Oh, yeah. Wait, you can see the shadow here. I didn't even notice that actually. And there's just none for the left leg. And Cherry writes, that's not Madoka's hair. Madoka fan art, but it's clearly neither of the characters. So this is in Spanish, but this artist had a Hatsune Miku piece, and a lot of people were accusing the Miku piece of being AI. So I guess here they're trying to show it's not AI by showing that Miku there's like a flat render of Miku on top of the background to try to indicate they made it. Again, this is not like relative to them, but when it comes to like AI accusations, a lot of times people aren't clear with what they're saying, right? They say like, oh, you used AI. It means that people think that AI was used in the process somewhere. It doesn't necessarily mean your entire piece is AI. As in, you generated something with AI and then traced over it. Not saying this artist necessarily did that, right? But that's something that people are referring to. And so this was the piece, right? So here's Hatsune Miku in their style, and they erased it to show you Miku. Here we have the full piece of Hatsune Miku, and to me, there's also some oddities. It's a couple of things. One, Hatsune Miku has, and I get that this artist is trying to show the pigtails are very light and flowy, etc., but there's like things that just physically does not happen with hair. So I'm just curious as to why. When you draw hair, you typically draw it like a ribbon, right? It would flow like a ribbon. It doesn't like have a loop literally in the hair itself. You know what I mean? Like this looks like there's a donut within her hair that's revealing a balloon beneath it. And then it flows down. And Again, this is something that AI tends to do. AI is not good with hair. AI is trying to draw like elaborate hair. It will make hair have two ends, right? Because like hair only has one end. It comes out of your skull and there's no other end to it. But AI has a tendency to make hair look like it has a start and an ending, right? Where it will like connect in two places instead of just one. Or you'll have strands of hair that appear kind of out of nowhere, right? Like maybe this is a rendering thing, I don't know, but it kind of looks like there's just a chunk of hair here that it just appears out of nowhere. So the hair behavior is just reading AI to me. The second thing being that kind of looks like it's just melting into the background. Again, this could be a rendering thing that the actual artist did. Maybe because I'm also not a fan of Hatsune Miku like that. Like, I just don't really know Miku like that. I did cosplay her once because my hair was the same color, but I'm not as familiar with her clothing, right? But feel like there's like a couple elements of her clothing that are also missing. That again, it could be AI, right? With AI just omitting details because AI is not good at drawing complex clothing, or it could just be like the artist forgot. It could be either. But the clips in her tie are not there. And then the detailing on the skirt is all gold, except Hatsune Miku's skirt detail is not gold. Except I actually did see some AI generated versions that did draw it in gold, so I don't know, right? This again could be just artist choice. Sometimes you just kind of cut corners and do whatever. And she does have a strap on the side, and it should have been this side, and the strap was not drawn in. Artist could have forgot. And there's these like detailing down the sleeves that are also not present. And the top sleeve I think should be black, right? This is off the official Vocaloid wiki. But yeah, the top part should be black. It could be that the artist just forgot. It could also be that it was AI and AI forgot it. And then they have this video. It's replying to the fact that people can't tell this is AI is scary, and they showcase I also do traditional art, which is most notably a medium where as of now, hopefully it never comes to this, but as of now, you can't fake it with AI, right? They're showing like a traditional piece of like a charcoal drawing, what looks like a charcoal drawing, and another like illustrative piece they've done. And here's what some people in the comments had to say. Creator writes, it's a bit difficult to believe you, but it would be so wonderful to see speed paints. I'm sure these are yours if you can provide. They add on, they can't seem to ever provide any videos that articulate their whole process. The timeline makes no sense either. And instead of saying, quote, oh, I do traditional art too, end quote, they could just post the whole speed paint process, digital canvas, and layers. Art style is inconsistent to the timeline. Artists don't jump in skill like that in such short notice. It's suspicious. And somebody replies, leave her alone. She's just talented. And creator writes, I think she is. But it would be really nice to see the full process of her recent works because the timeline makes no sense. And Serene writes, nah, the second piece is nowhere near the level of the AI one. And Callie says it's easier to blend colors online than it is to blend them on a canvas. So the messy look could just be from the brush used or they intended it. Nemesis says, yeah, but why don't you post speed paints? I know you posted one, but they are honestly so hard to believe. And Alicia says, posting progress videos unrelated to the piece being accused is one of the many tactics to avoid AI confirmations. If, quotes, if I can do this one, why couldn't I do that one, end quote, is no longer a valid reason. Because it's now not uncommon for talented but lazy artists to mix up using AI and actually doing it by themselves. AI for that piece, not AI for this piece. Nobody can tell, and that's probably the issue. And they have pieces in this style, in a very, very like Renaissance painting style, where it says slide to render, and they show you the final piece. And here is kind of like another piece. I'm curious as to your thoughts at the end of this. Again, don't send hate to the artists involved. I never want that to be the case. This was just something that people have had suspicions with and they brought it up to me. So I kind of wanted to look at it. In my personal theory, right? I'm not accusing them of using AI, whatever. This is just kind of like my little tinfoil hat theory. I think they're actually a very talented artist. They have shown they can do traditional art and they have other pieces posted that do look like it was hand drawn. I do think they have the capability to draw. I do think they can draw well. I also have suspicions that some tracing over AI was used in some pieces. Some of the rendering and the process just is a little too odd, but this is the thing at the end of the day, right? This is like beyond this artist in particular, but we're kind of reaching a point where if there are people who use AI who actually are talented artists on their own, it gets a little bit more confusing in terms of determining whether AI was used or not. Because if you have art skill, there's ways kind of to hide the fact that AI was used in the process. I'm not saying this artist did this necessarily, right? But we've seen this with other people in the past. It's getting like harder and harder to tell. And it's sad. It's really sad to see. My little tinfoil hat personal suspicion is that potentially there is some AI generated piece that is traced over for some of their pieces. But I do think they naturally are a talented artist that has the ability to draw. Oh, and sorry, the final thing that other people were pointing out that I didn't really talk about in this video, so let me like cover it real quick, is the difference in art style. They can allegedly paint in this Renaissance way, also in a much more anime-esque style, like an anime realism blend. And then this like hyper painterly style, which is something we saw in their Madoka Magica piece, right? Which is a lot more painterly. It's still in the anime-esque style, but the way it's rendered is much different. So yeah, I'm curious about your thoughts. I'd love to hear them down below in the comment section, as long as we stay respectful, because I don't want us to be sending hate to anybody. Not cool. And yeah, if you like this video, I appreciate it if you liked and subscribed. As of filming, we're past 120k subscribers, so thank you. I also have an Etsy shop where I sell digital goods and assets, and I also stream on Twitch 3 days a week, Mondays, Wednesdays, Saturdays at 6 p.m. PST. So I hope to catch you guys there or in another one of my videos. Peace.